Hello, everyone. I just retweeted this out. Good evening. Thank you all for joining us. Welcome. If you are tuning in for the first time, this is the La Maison de Rouge Monday night weekly live broadcast. I am your host, Lucy Sweetkill, one half of the duo that is La Maison de Rouge. A little bit about who we are. LMDR is dedicated to expanding the BDSM experience by discussing, educating, and informing our audiences about the intersections of kink, wellness, sexuality, spirituality, and social activism. We aim to create a safe space for discussing these topics, as well as providing an avenue for our guests to share their stories and experiences. Thank you again for joining us. Tonight, our guest is San Francisco-based professional dominatrix. She's been practicing for over 10 years and specializes in tease and denial, sensual sadism, and gender play. Please welcome pronoun she, her, Mistress Lux. Welcome, Lux. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm glad we can, we're actually on the same coast right now. I'm just further south. You're just up north.
Yeah.
Well, so this is the first time you're on our show.
Mm-hmm.
We love to start all our interviews off, with the same question, because our audience is always dying to know, your fans are dying to know, which is, what is your origin story? How did you become a dominatrix, especially a professional dominatrix? How did it all start for you?
Well, I was living in the Bay Area. I came here for school, and I found myself in my early 20s just getting involved in different, sex positive, queer, kinky communities. So I was just really curious when I moved to San Francisco. I kind of wanted to experience like anything I could get my hands on in different ways. I was a stripper for a while, which I really enjoyed, to be honest. I worked for a couple of years doing that. And I met other doms through that. I met women who worked for kink.com. So it was kind of a community I think I was, starting to get involved in before I became professional. And then in 2009, I actually started dating a guy who was a male dom. He was a dom for gay men. And that was really cool. Like I didn't know when we first went out that that's what he did. And then, he got more comfortable and told me about it. And I thought that was really interesting and exciting. And when I could, I would help him with sessions. His clientele tended to not be particularly interested in me, which was kind of funny after being a stripper and feeling like so adored by everyone in the audience. And then you're literally just like a prop for, a straight man to use in his scene. So it got me really curious about doing it on my own. And I took Cleo Dubois' class in 2010. I feel like most San Francisco doms either took that or worked at one of the houses. That's how a lot of us got started. So yeah, I took her class in 2010. And then this summer, I actually figured out the exact date of what I would consider like my first true pro session. It was July 24th, 2010. And it was like a cross-dressing scene in Philadelphia. I was living in New York City just for the summer. And it was really cool. I felt a little bit like I was faking it in the beginning because I didn't have as much training, I think, as someone who went through a house would have. And it was kind of, just show up and hope for the best. And over the years, I think 2010 was pretty much when it became my full-time like source of income, I would say, pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So there was some different like kinky dabbling, I would say, before that, but I would say I really started with Cleo's class.
Awesome. I have lots of questions to ask, especially the gay male dom part. So if you go further back, like, obviously you've been doing this 10 years now. We all have those reflection moments, right? There's more clarity, when you look back, right? So when you think about like your youth, whether that's childhood, teenage years, do you see any spots, any moments, any memories that like make where you are now like, oh, that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, all of my like early, before I was really interested in sex or had any interest in dating or anything like that, I could feel myself getting very turned on by power dynamics in general. Um, I started masturbating as a little kid who had no concept of what sex or anything was, but it would always be some scene where like someone was losing all their power and someone else was taking it. And I don't know how common that is. I don't know if that's like something a lot of people do or if it's us who grow up to, really embrace kink who have those memories. But I have so many as a kid, just, and kind of just a fascination with things that seemed weird, and I know that's kind of a vague description, but yeah. I had some specific, like I slapped a guy once and got excited, but
no, I think that's great. I think sometimes it starts off in these very like little vague ways, right? Girls who bully boys, all these little things. So, you kind of, there's some of that. And then when you started getting more sexually active later on, were there more just power dynamics or more kink or any of that?
Yeah, definitely. So I found, for me, stripping really brought, I think it's not something that people think is like really that adjacent to kink, but to me that just being an exhibitionist, I found really exciting, and the kind of tease and denial aspect of stripping, like getting people really hooked and then playing with them and pushing them away and things like that. I got a lot of pleasure out of that. And then, I was thinking recently about, I was like in my really early 20s. I hadn't been pro-doming yet, but a male friend of mine and I, we hadn't been dating or anything. We were just out at a show drinking, and I wanted him to tell me if he had a fantasy that he had never done before, and he was really shy about it. He wouldn't tell me, and he would start to tell me and change his mind and, about to say it and then would pull back. And it was that he wanted a woman to use a strap-on on him. And I was like, oh my God, I'll do it like right now. Like, come over. I have one. And we actually did. And this again was like a guy that I had no sexual relationship with before at all. And I think I was always just, I get a lot of pleasure, I think, in, fulfilling someone else's fantasy, especially if it's something they're shy or ashamed of. I find that really fun to be the person that can bring it out. So I think I took that role a lot of times throughout my dating relationships.
Totally. Well, I find that like stripping is like the ultimate tease and deny, right? And I find that a lot of strippers either become doms later on, like as a career change and evolution. And it's total tease and deny, and it's power play. And there's like all kinds of dynamics in that are like really fun to kind of like having someone just lust after you, right? And then just be like, okay, I'm done.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell us about your years stripping. Like, did you find that it influenced you learned a lot just about stripping and sex work, and it influenced how you were as a dom, or were they like very separate for you?
I really feel like it was a continuum for me, because when I say that I've been a dom for 10 years, I feel like I've been one longer, even though, I can pinpoint when my first session actually was. I was really curious about being a dom during the years that I was stripping, and the lusty lady was still around in those days. It was the unionized strip club in North Beach, and I knew a few women there who were doms, and it was something I was like fascinated with and wanted to get into, and wasn't sure how at first. But yeah, I think also just like the fashion, I would start modeling my stripper outfits to be a little bit more fetishy, you know, kinkier. And I really liked kind of fucking with the guys' heads a little bit, like not just being a sweet, compliant stripper. I liked, you know, when I could, trying to challenge them or ignore them or whatever I could do, whatever little thing I could get in, you know.
So then stripping turned into so then your friend that you met, who was a gay male dom,
Yeah.
was he gay himself or was he gay for pay?
So I say he's gay for pay, but I guess the irony is that he actually would like market himself as a very straight alpha male, you know.
Yeah.
He would work with men, but really market himself as like all-American straight dude.
Okay, so tell me about that, because because you don't hear that many male sex work stories, right? And so how did that all come about? What was your interaction like that really like drove you to like, hey, I want to do this too?
Well, let's see. I still was dancing a little bit then, and then I would pick up just kind of the odd. I know I saw you and Nina talk about Craigslist during her interview, and I had a lot of experiences with that too. Just kind of, what can I do that's weird and will make me a little money and be like an interesting story? So I was dabbling in different things, and then I think with him, you know, as I said, I had been kind of interested in and curious about DOMs, but there was just something that felt not quite me. Like I think I've evolved over the years, but I think at the time I thought that I had to be mean or angry or just like dress a certain way, or I wasn't truly being dominant, you know. And I think it was cool for me to see how there was just a totally different way to do it, where, you know, he didn't put on fetish clothing or anything, and it was all about, you know, like a demeanor, just a dynamic that he had with these guys. And I think seeing how broad the idea of domination and submission could be made me feel more like, okay, I could do this. Like I don't have to just become some fake person that doesn't feel true to who I am. I can do it in the way that feels right to me. So yeah, that got me more and more curious. And then when I found out about Cleo, I was pretty committed to it at that point.
Yeah, and that was the biggest turning point, taking this class and then moving forward from there. So you decide to, like, I'm going to commit myself. I'm going to be a professional dominatrix. Mm-hmm. So what did that look like at the beginning for you?
So in the beginning, let's see. I mean, again, I didn't work at a house or anything. So it was take out an Eros ad, learn what you can from other people. I had a friend who was an escort actually, who would, you know, teach me her safety protocols and things like that, you know, learning about screening. And I feel like I was around enough other sex workers. I never had an official mentor, but I could pick things up from other people in terms of just how to get clients and how to do it safely. And I made a website, and I definitely felt a little bit fake in the beginning. I don't know if that's a common thing where you're just sort of getting your bearings and wanting to project a lot of confidence to the people coming to see you, but not quite having it yet. So that would be the very, very beginning. And then I actually, in 2010, I got a few clients who were really dedicated right away. One I've actually been seeing for 10 years. He was one of my first clients, and we're still seeing each other. And I worked really like under the radar for probably 6 of those years. I was getting just anxious about being online. I wasn't sure if there was, you know, a good reason not to be kind of presenting myself, saying what I was doing. And I took my website down and just only saw regulars for about 6 years, which it worked out really well in a way, but I feel like it was also a gap of time where I didn't have a lot of community. I wasn't really online. I wasn't on Twitter, any of those things. And it was a bit lonely then. So I also got to know really well how to do the things that these people liked, and had big gaps in knowledge that I didn't get to fill in until, quite a bit later.
Yeah. And then, but that shifted, it seemed like.
Yeah, around 2016, I put my site back up, started taking new clients. Being under the radar it worked well in a way, but then it also, I don't know if this is a common experience, but you almost get like too close to people where it just starts to feel a little bit too much like a relationship or something. Like I needed to branch out, and I'm really glad I did. I feel like what I was doing then worked at the time, and now it's nice to kind of, be meeting new people and new clients.
Yeah, I think that's like any phase. People who start out a house, like it fits for the moment, and then there's a point where it needs to shift or change, right?
Yeah.
And it seemed like you were kind of in that space as well, where it worked for your lifestyle, worked for what you were comfortable with, but then it stopped working for you and you had to make a change and a shift in that, especially if you want to grow, right? And grow in different things. I think, and maybe like, I would love to hear your thoughts around this as when you were stripping, like what we do is relationship building, right? We build these relationships, and you build these relationships, you have to manage these relationships, but sometimes the relationship becomes so much bigger than, and especially as close as you're getting to some people, like, I always call ourselves keepers of secrets, where we know aspects of people that they have never shared to anyone else in their life, right? And there's this bond and intimacy that happens, but then there's so much weight that goes with it that you have to be careful of. And what you said kind of like made me think of that, where it would seem like it was getting too close. There was too much. And was that something that you ever felt when you were stripping, or was this only within the domination? And what are your thoughts around that?
With stripping, I feel like there were clients who got too close to me, like people who, they want to know who you really are, right? They want to uncover whatever secret they feel is there. And I found that feeling a bit invasive, but it was pretty different, I think, than BDSM, because I find these experiences much more intimate. And then also, with regular clients, sometimes you're traveling or you're spending time outside the dungeon with them and things like that. So yeah, I definitely felt it a lot more doing this work, that kind of closeness to the point of, toxicity sometimes. Stripping, I think, there were other things that were kind of emotionally uncomfortable about that. I think that strippers are perceived to have a lot less autonomy than we are, and that can be really annoying. Like just assumptions about who you are, what you're doing, and why. And
I think that's something within our line of work that, like, the relationships and the reality that, like, even with these power dynamics, like these relationships we have with our subs and our clients can become toxic really easily. And we in ourselves have to protect ourselves from that, because we do take on a lot emotionally, and there's a lot of it I think we enjoy, obviously that's why we get into this line of work, like the intimacy, the secrets, the building, and the kinkiness of all, but it's not all roses.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that a lot.
So within your BDSM, how have you, your kink, your play, your philosophy, you know, the whole umbrella of how you do your work, how have you seen yourself evolve over those 10 years?
Yeah, I definitely have. I think most jobs that we do when we're younger, we don't understand our value in the same way that we do when we're older. And I don't think that's unique to sex work. I think that a lot of people do things for pay when they're 21 that they wouldn't accept later in their career. And I've definitely had boundaries change, both in terms of like actual kink and the way that I'll interact with my clients, even, you know, through setting up appointments and things like that. I feel like I've certainly come into my own as a dominant much more over the years. I'm trying to think if there are different activities that I didn't like when I started that I do now. But I feel like I've always been pretty adventurous and kind of open to trying most things, open to learning about things. Yeah, I would say my like list of activities is probably the things that interest me the most have probably always been pretty similar.
Cool.
Yeah.
How about any limits that you've learned that you tried? You know, you spoke about how you kind of did things maybe at a younger age that you wouldn't have done now.
Mm-hmm.
What has your kind of boundaries and limits expanded, contracted? What do they look like?
Let's see. I'm thinking, for example, I think I was much more open to like fetishes when I was first starting. Things like foot fetishes. I wouldn't say it's like a limit now, but I get a lot less pleasure out of being fetishized than I do being dominant. And that was a distinction I didn't necessarily understand when I started. And nor did I understand that it's, you know, okay to not take a session if it doesn't sound fun, you know, just because the person is nice or you can get paid. Like I think I've become a lot pickier in who I want to play with and what I want to engage in. And it's often just the way someone talks to you as well, regardless of what it is that you're doing. You know, I try as much as possible to take appointments that I'm excited about.
Yeah.
And not ones that I'm, you know, just doing, which was not always the case.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that's being a little more selective is like the benefit of being in this industry. But I think I teach new DOMs a lot that like you don't know who you are within this context yet, and it's okay to be a service top. It's okay to do just try different sessions and see how it is, because you never know. You might get introduced to something and be like, oh wait, I didn't think I would like this, but I actually do. It works both sides, right? Mm-hmm. I think over time, then you get to be more selective and make those choices, but you end up learning so much about yourself.
Yeah.
So, I want to ask you, what are some of your top learning lessons, from stripping, doming, from this work, from BDSM, from any, from your line of work? What are some big learning lessons that you want to put out there to our audience who might listen to this later on, whether it's for subs, potential clients, or for people trying to come into this business?
I think you're always worth more than you realize. I would say, especially to new DOMs. And don't be afraid to walk away from situations. There will be someone else if it's not working out with a particular client. I feel like there's always something. If you almost need to make space, I think, for like take the people out that aren't really serving your best interest, and
I agree.
Yeah, and really take care of the ones that do. Really be kind and loyal and caring for the people that deserve it. Let's see, that's one. don't be afraid to specialize in things, I think, is something else. Like, don't feel like, that's something I've learned over time. Don't feel like you have to do everything, that you have to please every person. You'll be better off, attracting the people that really want what you like to offer. And yeah, I think I just really believe in investing in relationships when they're working well for you. And also, I think for me, at least, when I started as a dom, and I kind of touched on this, I just had an idea of what it was supposed to be like. I mean, what a dominant woman is supposed to be. It's someone in leather and high heels and kind of all of these superficial markers of dominance. And I'm always pleased when I meet people that defy those stereotypes in different ways. And looking at dominance as something, like not being afraid to be yourself and demanding what it is that you want rather than fitting into a mold.
Yeah.
These are things I think I've kind of picked up over the years and incorporated into my style.
I love that. Yeah, I think that's one of those things, you've been to our femdom gatherings and there's just every color, shape, size, people into personalities. There's a dom, there's, a pro dom for everyone, to be honest, and there's no one way. We all try to find the safe ways of doing things, but there's no one way of doing anything.
Right. And I think it's really interesting too to see doms incorporate whatever things they like to do in their personal life into their professional work. Whether that's just let me think of some good examples. If you're more of a tomboy type naturally, like taking on more athletic sort of sessions like wrestling and things like that, I think it's really cool when I meet women who specialize specifically in that, who are not going to get all girly and dressed up, and they know exactly how they like to work, and they have their clients that gravitate toward that. And then people who are really good with technology, for example, and can I know Tech Dom, is that her name, Tech Dom, Mistress Harley? I saw a talk with her.
Yeah, about like, using technology to use. Yeah, I think it's great when people have those specialties and they incorporate what.
Yeah, that you can just find whatever it is that you like doing outside of the dungeon and use it as a tool. I think that's really cool. So I'm always impressed when I meet people who do things differently like that.
Yeah, I agree. So in regards to speaking of specialties, what do you feel are yours?
So, yeah, I said gender play. That's something I really enjoy, feminization. I always wanted a sister growing up. So I really like, taking a man and kind of making him be my little sister and getting him dressed up and everything. And I think I was thinking about this. It's kind of I think my dom archetype is like the mean older sister more than being some really powerful authority figure. I feel like I'm more of I like the devotion to come more from someone admiring and wanting to please me rather than being afraid of me, which I think can kind of happen in sibling dynamics, where you have an older sibling, you want them to think you're cool more than anything, so you'll do whatever they want. I like to play with that kind of dynamic. So yeah, gender play, feminization, forced bi is really fun to me also, when I can get people to participate in it. And then, yeah, tease and denial. I think I work into pretty much every scene I do. Just, I like to be seductive and flirtatious and, yeah, get them to want to submit rather than, forcing it.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of power in that, the seduction compared to the force, needing to, and those are all different styles, Yeah. So, I want to ask more questions, but I do want to open it up to questions just in case people, sometimes we get a lot of questions, so give us time to ask a bunch of them. But before questions come up, if you guys want to ask them, you're welcome. Please make sure that they're respectful, and I will put them on the screen and read them out loud to be answered. So I'm going to start with my own question, which is, what advice would you give new subs, new clients reaching out to you? What do you want them to know?
I am very impressed when I know someone has actually read my website or looked through my Twitter feed or read an interview I've done, when I feel like it's not like I'm not one on a list of people that they just want to see who's available Friday or something. Do you know what I mean? I really like.
I didn't copy paste you avail on send it to 100 people.
Yeah, I guess it's obvious. I mean, no one likes that, but it makes an impression on me when I know someone's really paid attention to what I've written, or even if it's a photo, if you just tell me why you want to see me, that goes a long ways. It makes a good impression on me. I would say that's the biggest one.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing that I hear. I've done over 200 interviews now. And we hear this all the time, Dia and I, which is when we ask pro-doms, not even just pro-doms, escorts, any provider, so a big part of what we try to do in our interviews is, humanize these figures, right? Mistress Lux, this like untouchable figures, right? Humanize them, but also like teach, because you're not taught like, oh, how do you approach a sex worker? It's not something, that is in a common understanding. And so we try to help people understand, like, this is no different from reaching out to any other professional, whether it's a lawyer, whether it's, we want to know that you do some research on us, just as much as if I needed a real estate lawyer, right? I would do some research. I would try to find who in my area. I would try to figure out what they do. I'd try to figure out if they're a good lawyer in that area. I'd figure out if they specialize in what I need them for, right? We would do that, right? For anything else. And we just want to feel like someone who's coming at us is doing the same, that you are getting to know us, reading our website, and that you're reaching out to us because you're like, hey, Mistress Lux specializes in tease and deny, and I've looked at her Twitter and her Instagram, and I love her look, and I love what she's into, and that's why I'm reaching out. Compared to just being like, we're just random in a way. And I think
just like a fetish dispenser.
I call it a dominatrix monkey. I am not your dominatrix monkey. Like that. It's, the amount, it's just objectifying, and it just like a lot of us put a lot of work and time into all these things that we curate and put out there, our website and everything. And we want to know that people make an effort, and that shows a lot as a submissive in this power dynamic. Like, that's what you should be doing. It shows a lot as a submissive. You did your research. Like,
absolutely.
So, yeah. So first question I have. So our first question is, do you have any readings, articles, movies around BDSM that resonated with you or resonate with you? Past or current, present?
Let's see. I love Mary Gateskill. She's probably my favorite writer. She wrote Secretary, the story that the movie was based on. And I don't think that's even one of her best stories, but I've read everything she's written. And I feel like there's stories and scenes in novels that are very explicitly about BDSM, but then a lot of other ones that are more play with power dynamics in a way that feels very kinky, even if it's not taking place in a bedroom or dungeon. My question is she mostly, so she wrote The Secretary, which the movie is based on. Yeah.
Is all her writing with BDSM elements in it? Do you know?
No, not all of it. But there's another story. I wish I could think of the name of it, but it's kind of about, I feel like everyone who's into kink should read this. Maybe I can find it and put it on Twitter later. kind of about a dom sub scene gone wrong, which it was just so well done, where you can see that people can be saying the same thing and mean different things by it, which I'm sure we've all experienced in sessions, like an activity being the same thing, but kind of the spirit or intention behind it being different. And oh man, I really want to remember the name of it, but I'll find it and put it on Twitter. But yeah, her short story collection, Bad Behavior, had that story, and I love that book. And then her other one was Because They Wanted To, is the other story collection that I really liked. I can't really think of a movie.
Besides The Secretary.
Yeah. But I always want movie recommendations, so if anyone else has them, send them to me. Yeah.
I love that. Next question is, where did your title name Mistress Lux originate from? Any inspiration for it?
So I was hoping someone would ask that, actually. I like the name Lux a lot. I knew a stripper whose legal name was Lux, and she was really cool. She's kind of gothy, so I've always liked the name. It means light, as does Lucy, which I think it's kind of cool in this like dark world to have a name that means light. And then lastly, the character in the Virgin Suicides, the sexy virgin. I like that character a lot too, just kind of being so innocently seductive. So yeah, the three things. I would say the Virgin Suicides was like the main inspiration, but then I had these other remember that cool stripper named Lux. So
yeah, I love that movie. The soundtrack for that movie is amazing. That was one of the soundtracks I really loved, and that movie was really great. Mm-hmm. So if you haven't all watched it yet, Virgin Suicide is great. It's what's her name? Sofia Coppola, right? Yeah. It was one of her first, I think she did.
Yeah, I think you're right. Mm-hmm. It was probably 15 years ago, or maybe
maybe even longer. Jeez. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it was 20 years ago, to be honest. Someone asked, are you a sadist?
Am I a sadist? Hi, Left Coast guy. Yeah, of course I'm a sadist. I love administering pain when I have a willing subject. I like to be still seductive whenever I'm being mean. I like to, play with the back and forth, the sweet and sexy versus I'm still going to hurt you. So I am a sadist, but I would say my unique brand of sadist.
Awesome. All right. We have a question. How do you build up the dynamic with an experienced but new sub? What does that mean? An experienced but new sub? Like experienced in their personal life, new to her? So I'm going to take it as that. Yeah. I'm going to take this question as, how do you build up the dynamic with a sub who's experienced in play and BDSM, but new to you?
Let's see. Well, I think I feel like I get a lot of beginners, people who are new to kink. I don't know if that's true of all pros. I always thought maybe because my marketing is a little more gentle looking, if I seem less scary, then I can trick them. But let's see, someone who's really experienced but new to me, I would say the difference is that I can just trust them to know their limits really well, to know when to safe word and things like that. And I find that can be really fun, that you can go a lot deeper with someone, knowing that they know how to keep themselves safe or to speak up if something's going wrong. Other than that, I don't know if it's so different than someone who's not experienced. Maybe training them to do things as I want rather than, as a past Tom would have wanted.
Yeah. I think it's, I think experienced or not, I think with new subs, it's more about introducing them and kind of walking through and guiding, while someone who's experienced, you sort of can kind of it's almost like playing a game, right? With someone and being like, oh, you've played Taboo? I've played Taboo, let's go, right? While somebody are like, oh, let me explain how this works. I've been playing a lot of games during this Christmas holiday, so it's the first thing that goes through my head. A lot of board games. So All right, we have another question. Would Mistress speak on her website public play through continuum of dancing to DS Power Exchange? So I'm wondering if this is specific to your website or...
I don't understand. I know who this guy is, and I don't really understand what he's asking.
Okay, so we're going to move past. Can you clarify this question? Because I wasn't sure if he was speaking something specifically about your website, so I thought you may know, but it seems
I do say that I enjoy public scenes. Okay. I don't know. I don't quite understand the question of dancing to DS Power Exchange.
Yeah. All right. You're welcome to ask the question again so that we can figure it out. Someone has asked, has COVID changed your view on online content at all? Because you don't do online content, right? You don't do clips or anything like that.
I don't. I had an OnlyFans for a while, but I love in-person work. To me, that's really supplemental to what I want to be doing. And I don't feel like I'm on a computer so much already. And I just don't feel like it's worth it. The amount of work it takes to do something that to me is less fulfilling and less lucrative. So yeah, I've taken an income cut, but I feel like I'm still kind of sticking to the things I enjoy more. Has it changed my view on me creating online content? I definitely considered doing a bit more of it in the beginning of the pandemic, but I just realized it's not where my heart is. So
yeah, it's hard. Online stuff, I feel like you're in my boat, Lux. Like, I get the question of, oh, why don't you make clips? Why don't you make clips? Why do you make clips? And it's because making clips is very different. It's even if you have a sub in it, it's so different. You have to get the right angles and the mount. It's less in the moment also, and it's too curated for me. And sometimes the subtleness of play, of tone, of look, of glance, of all of that gets lost in all of that. And it just feels very distant for me. I really don't enjoy it. I like the very physical, energetic, emotional, pheromonal eye contact of in-person play that just doesn't translate well in clips.
Yeah, I mean, I would feel like that's more of a performance and less of a real interaction with someone. Is how I could imagine seeing it.
And I love all the Dom friends who do clips. Like, I'm amazed by their ability to do that, because I just, I tried for a day where I'm like, I'm going to sit down. And I was just like, I want to kill myself.
Yeah.
I felt like stabbing myself in the eye. Like, that's what I felt like. It's not a medium for everyone. Everyone has different mediums, right? And I love, Dia and I, we have different mediums. Like, she loves texting and I enjoy texting, but I like phone and video calls. Of the online work, I can do that. I love phone domination sessions. And she's like, oh, I hate talking on the phone. And I get that about her. And she's just like, I love texting and, kinky texting and stuff like that. And I do enjoy that as well, but I enjoy the phone calls as well. So
yeah, I enjoy phone a lot more as well. I feel like there's still more of the spontaneity and stuff like that to me. And yeah, I can get into a phone scene pretty well.
Yeah, mentally. We have another question. Do you have any rituals for getting ready for session, and what do you enjoy for self-care afterwards?
I love just doing my makeup and getting dressed before a session. I often do a face mask or something before too. I always wear, this is my lucky dominatrix bracelet that I feel like I almost need to put on. And that's a bit of a ritual for me, putting this on, getting ready. For self-care after, that's something I've been kind of trying to nail down for a long time. I feel after a scene like I'm very high for a little bit too long after. It's hard for me to kind of come back to earth after a scene. So I'm still kind of trying to figure out if there's any like quick fix, I guess, or anything I can do to make that transition back to reality easier.
Like
Because I feel like for hours after I'm in a different headspace.
Yeah. Well, I think that's an ongoing thing to figure out around your personality. For me, it's, I mentally, like, it's intentional when I clean afterward. It's sort of, I intentionally am putting back some of that energy by cleaning and putting the toys away. I shower. That's really big. And I really think of it as washing it away as well. Food. So then I eat something I really enjoy. But one of the things that many of you all don't know that I do is I actually love to get lost in some sort of ridiculous like movie or TV show, because then it's an automatic mental checkout. Like it can't be a show that like really activates my mind. It has to be a show or a movie that like, and it's usually Bob's Burgers. It's usually, and I've watched every episode of Bob's Burgers like 5,000 times. It has to be something where I can actually just be like, oh, I'm switching that off now.
Yeah.
So that's sort of my little routine.
Yeah, maybe I should find a good TV show too.
Yeah, like really one that just like doesn't require any mental like activation. And for me, that's just help. It's the visual, it's the audio, and I can kind of just like get lost in the entertainment of it all. That helps shut my mind off, because I experience that like heavy amount of top high too.
Yeah.
And it takes a really long time for me to come down from it. Yeah. Well, I guess this is a relatable question, which is, what does Dom space mean to you?
Dom space. So when I'm in a top state of mind?
I think so.
Oh, wow. It's a good question. And I think that is just such a hard thing to put into words. I've actually never thought about putting it into words, which is something I should think about. I don't know if I have a good answer for this one. I mean, I certainly have a sense of like what Dom space feels like, but how to describe it?
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with who I'm playing with. I mean, I feel like it's this just deep connection with a person that's really unlike any other interaction I can think of, where you're kind of understanding someone non-verbally, like picking up their body language and emotions and responding to it. I feel like anything I could say will be very vague, but it's a really powerful feeling that's very hard to explain, I guess.
I think that's a good answer, actually, because some things you just have to feel and be, and it's hard to put words to it. So this was back to the previous question. I guess this is what they meant. Your dancing informs the sub's exposure, but DS power exchange enhances the play, your view. I don't know. Do you speak about your dancing? Do you mean her dancing as stripping, her past? Do you speak about that on your website?
No, I don't. I don't. Nico, I'm not sure where you're getting this.
Yeah, I'm very confused by this question. So we're going to have to pass. Having been in sex work for a while, have you experienced any burnout, and how did/do you handle/deal with it?
Yeah, I do on occasion. For me, just taking technology breaks is really important. Not just related to sex work. Yeah. I think that's something everyone can relate to, especially this year, and how tethered we are to phone and internet and all of that. Taking technology breaks, it's often a particular client that I need to take a break from. And getting out in nature is always really helpful for me, like having a day where I leave my phone at home and go hiking or something like that. And just be as far from dungeon aesthetics and everything as I can. And then enough of that, and I'm really craving coming back. So I try to do that every now and then.
Yeah, I think that's a really good, figuring out how can you decompress. And I think all of us, like, during the holidays, I kind of took a social media phone break because I think we all need that. We're so attached to this thing and our line of work even more because it's our business, it's our marketing, it's everything. And it's so hard to like step away sometimes.
It is, yeah. Also, just having a good community of people who understand what it's like is really helpful. You know, having other Dom friends who you can just commiserate with, I think. Not to say that the work makes me miserable. I absolutely love it. But when you're feeling burnt out, I think it's helpful to just have friends who are doing the same thing. And we all get burnt out sometimes.
Yeah, I think any line of work, I think that's the big thing is like, even my friends who are artists, musicians, you know, who've made a living being a musician, they love what they do, but does not mean they don't get burnt out. You know, one of my really good friends, like that's what he does. He's a stand-up bass player, does really well, you know, he went to school for it. That's what he wanted. But he got so burnt out from touring and touring and touring and touring and making albums and all of this. He was just like, I need to just like stop. And it doesn't mean you don't love it. And he started picking up piano and other instruments. And it's like, I think that's what happens with us. Like we love what we do, but we're very similar. We're artists in that sense, right? We love what we do, but doesn't mean we want to do it 24/7.
Right.
And not be able to step away from it.
Yeah, I mean, we put so much of ourselves into our work. I think you need to bring yourself back a little bit. Also, sometimes kinky play away from clients, I think, can really reinvigorate my excitement for it. You know, doing it just for me, friends or play partners, I think always, kind of gets me back into the right headspace when I'm feeling burnt out.
Yeah. I mean, so my question to you, I just want to see if this is very similar. How do you feel about, you know, being in this business and this stuff? How do you feel about play parties? Like just going to them?
Let's see. I don't know. Well, no, I've been to them without, I'm usually going with a client. I like going. Then I've also gone with like personal play partners, and I think they're generally really fun. I think I'm always a little bit conscious of being like Mistress Lux, even if no one else there knows who I am. I feel like when I step into a dungeon, I'm me. So I don't think I can approach them the same way someone who's not a professional might. Maybe unless I was in like a different country or something where I knew I wouldn't know anyone. It was like a dungeon I had never been to before. But I generally think they're a lot of fun, even if I'm always kind of wearing my professional hat. How about you? If I can ask a question.
Yeah, totally. So I asked that because like you know, at the beginning of my career, I would go to a lot of play parties and all this stuff, you know, but I just don't now. I don't because there's multiple things that happen. Especially because I show my face, especially because I do all these other things. I'm never anonymous.
Right.
Never. There's at least one or two people at a play party who will come up to me, and it makes it hard for me to just like let go because I have to have that loosey sweet, you know, It's just a little too much sometimes. I feel like I'm working compared to just hanging out with my friends. And so it's just different now, you know, it's really hard to let go. And so I don't find myself at play parties very often because I end up feeling like I have to be the full Mistress Lucy Sweetkill. And I know that's on me, but it's like, I don't know if I know how to, you know, put that away to come to a play party. You know, it's really hard because Mistress Lucy Sweetkill is not it's not a mask I put on and take off. It is very much fused into who I am as a person. Like me being a Dom is an extension of who I am. So it's not like I could just be like, okay, I'm going to come to this party and take off Mistress Lucy Sweetkill and just be this other person, right? And be my other person. Like it's just too fused in that it becomes a little too hard to like pull apart.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. And I know a lot of other pro doms who feel that way. And so they don't necessarily go to play parties unless they're ready for the possibility that it's going to weave into work and out and other things.
Yeah,
right?
I guess I've always, even if I'm going with a personal partner, I always go kind of, approaching it as I'm Mistress Lux, and maybe, aware that people might be watching what I'm doing, or I do like watching other people's scenes though at parties too. I always
love that.
Really, inspirational, especially, just lifestyle players, people who are playing with their spouse or something like that, and just seeing play work out in different ways and seeing different things people like to do together. I take a lot of inspiration from that. So that's always fun. But I also really strongly feel what you were saying as well.
Yeah, and I'm also not an exhibitionist. Like, I think that's the difference. Like, I have a lot of friends who enjoy, whether they were strippers who became doms or escorts who became doms, whichever, there's like a sense of exhibitionism that happens. I'm a voyeur. I like to watch. I've always been that way as a kid. And so for me, when I'm in playing dungeon, I'm sort of watching what I do and not exactly like exhibiting. And so sometimes play parties is a little too much exhibition for me. Like, I don't want to be watched necessarily. I prefer doing all the watching and the creeping. Yeah. I like to be the creepo.
Yeah. I do love being watched. I like both.
I have some other questions that I want to ask that I think are really great, which is, what are the key qualities or that you value in a sub?
Okay, let's see. Key qualities that I value in a sub. I find this question difficult because so much of it is just a relationship. I mean, it's how you work out with someone. Like, I'm trying to think, like, even in a friend, are there qualities that I really look for across the board? I think there's some basic things like mutual respect and, just like we were saying before, feeling like you're not just someone's, what you said, monkey dom.
Or just dom monkey.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to feel like someone is interested in creating this like once in a lifetime, fleeting, exciting thing with me, that we're working together to have like an amazing experience, that it's not someone coming in with really particular expectations and asking me to check them off. So what quality would that be? Like flexibility? I don't know. What are those qualities?
I think I think it's hard. This question's a little hard because, I think we appreciate a lot of qualities in different types of people, right? And it's intention, right? Like, if you come into it with good intention, even if you make a mistake, it's a willingness to say, oh, I made a mistake. Let me try to fix this. Let me try to work it out. Let me try to figure it out. Because people are going to make mistakes. Subs are going to make mistakes. Doms are going to make mistakes, right? I think there's a little bit of that respect. I really think the mutual respect, like, is everyone respecting each other's time? Are they respecting each other's space? Are they, respecting those things? I think that's a big one. I mean,
I'm very protective of other sex workers, I think, in general, like across the board too. So if people have positive things to say about other women, that goes far with me, as opposed to
shit talking.
Some people want to do that, and that always leaves a really bad impression on me.
Yeah, and also, like, there's ways of going about, like, if you don't have a good experience with someone, that happens, right? It could be chemistry, it could be whatever, right? And there's a way of talking about that compared to, like, I think you and every dom has experienced this, the shit talking, right? When a sub's just like, she was just horrible and da-da-da-da and blah, 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 and, and you're just kind of like, you realize a lot of us know each other, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And
I appreciate, sorry.
Yeah. There's just a way of talking about it. Like you can say you didn't have a good experience with someone, but there's a way of talking about it.
Yeah, and I appreciate knowing when an experience wasn't good, because I want to know, like, what is it that made you come to me? What is it that you need that you haven't been able to find before? But yeah, having respect, I think, not just for me, but all the other people doing this kind of work goes really far with me.
You know what I value? Honesty.
Yeah.
In a sub. Like to even say, I don't know, like, I don't know what I want, you know, or I don't know how to do this, or I'm unsure about this, you know, that's okay. Like, it's okay to come into it saying, I really don't know. Like, I've never told anybody any of this, and I just don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. I don't know what's expected of me. And just be open to the fact that you don't know and willing to, like, learn.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's a big one. I think this is one, like, if Pups is watching, I'm going to call him out right now.
Yeah.
What I've had to teach him, for those who are experienced subs, not just like new people, I've had to, you know, and I love your thoughts on this, Lux. I've had to teach him. So most people know Pups has been with me a very long time. You know, what I've had to teach him is not to emotionally dump on me, which happens when he's feeling very emotional about something, and then he'll just like spew on me. And I'm just like, nope, that is not okay. Like, I know you're feeling sensitive. I know you're feeling emotional. I know you're feeling something. And sometimes it happens because he misses me. I travel a lot, all this stuff. And then it would just be like, blah, you know, and just taking time to like assess how he feels and come to me in a more respectful way of saying, you know, Mistress, I'm feeling some things right now. Would it be okay to talk to you about it? I think for experienced subs, for those, I know a lot of experienced subs are out there listening to this, you know, don't emotionally dump on your doms. That is not okay. You know, it burns us out.
It does. I've experienced that as well. That's a good point to bring up that didn't come to me right away, but it's very true.
And it burns us out. You wanna know what adds to burnout?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I feel like I was thinking about that, what you mentioned, right? Which was like sometimes relationships get too close and it becomes too toxic. I think that's what's happening, a lot of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not so dissimilar from non-client relationships, where you don't want people to get in a dynamic where they're taking each other for granted, where it's like, well, you've always listened to me, I'm just going to do this and not check in with you and not take your feelings about it into consideration. I think that's like a danger in any relationship that becomes really close, client or not, you know, just appreciating the person. And
yeah, I think that's a blanket thing amongst all relationships, friendships, because we all have those friends who like love to only hang out with you when they're like spewing all their stuff, right? And you're just like, do you only call me when you're going through shit and I have to be the burden? I have to be the person who takes all your burden.
Right.
Like, you know.
Yeah, and I think it can get tricky in sex work client relationships, because what does paying get you? You know what I mean? Like what other privileges are you paying for that maybe you wouldn't demand of like a wife or girlfriend or something like that, but you are paying for an interaction, which also shouldn't mean that you have complete control over it and the other person's feelings don't matter. But I feel like that can get sticky. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is sticky. I think like once, like, but I also think it's an interesting like subject, right? That I think comes up a lot, which is, so, okay, so let's say you go to a restaurant, you're paying for a meal, like, what is the line between treating the server like shit, right? You know what I mean? Like, where is that line where you're like, hey, I'm allergic to XYZ, can you make sure that's not in it? Like, where is the line of like what is acceptable behavior and what is not, even though you're the customer, even though you're paying, like what level of like variations and extensions and all of that, right? Can you make, and where does that point become like too much? Right.
I feel like being a sex worker has changed every like paid relationship in my life. Actually, like I think I'm so much more sensitive to other people's feelings when I'm in a customer position because I really know how I like to be treated. You know what I mean? Which I'm sure every working person can say to an extent, but because our relationships are so intimate and I think the boundaries can get more confused, I feel like it's made me like a better customer in every venue there is to spend money, basically, like just having more compassion and consideration for someone working for me.
I totally agree. Yeah. I feel like the same way. Like, I feel like before, just because, I grew up in that dynamic. Like my mom owns a beauty salon, and I see how people treat those who do a service for them, especially something like nails or hair or whatever. Like, there is a tendency to treat those people lower than, a tendency to treat those people like shit, how they, and so I've seen it all my life that like, I've been really sensitive to that, but even becoming a sex worker, even more, because you do see what happens is people put you in this like, oh, you're not worth anything. Absolutely. Sort of thing. And so, I've reflected on my own like judgments around what people do, right? Like, oh, like I've never seen as, oh, you work at McDonald's, because I see people do that with us, right? Yes. Oh, that's, you do that, that's gross. Definitely. And so I think it's made us really sensitive to like those thoughts, right?
Yeah. When I go out with sex workers, I feel like I notice that we're more considerate in general. I really believe that when I'll go out to dinner with sex worker friends and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. First off, it's more fun and the freaking conversations are hilarious. Yeah.
Yes.
But I see that as well. I think sex workers tend to be, in all honesty, I find them to be much more considerate to other service providers of all kinds.
Yeah, I think it's a humbling field to be in, even though we're doms and we're like worshipped in different ways. We're still, working in a legal gray area. We're still vulnerable in a lot of ways. And I think that humbles you and makes you, reconsider.
Yeah.
Other people find themselves in a position like that.
Totally. So I'm going to take that as the last question because we're over the hour, but I do want to point out, so first thing is, if you all look at the bottom of the screen, this is how to get in contact with Mistress Lux, her website, Twitter, FetLife, Instagram. So please look at her things, follow her stuff, be respectful. If you do reach out, that, she already told you what she liked, so listen to her words. Lux, is there any ending announcements, anything, travel, projects, anything that you want to let people know before we end our conversation?
I'm taking limited sessions in the Bay Area for the foreseeable future. I'll travel when I can. I'm not sure when that'll be yet. And I'm getting started on a novel about being a dominatrix. So just send me good writing vibes, good productive writing vibes.
Awesome.
Just out there and ask for it.
Is it fiction or nonfiction?
Fiction.
Okay. Cool. I send you all the great writing vibes because there definitely needs to be more of that out there. So, all right. So I want to say thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Lux, for being on a show. I have one big announcement, actually, which is, so I totally blinked on this. So one big announcement is the fact that both Dia and I. So some people have asked, oh, what happened to Miss, Domina Dia? Dia only just took a break this month of December, a little bit of February, because she had some, moving things, life stuff. And I'm here in Palm Springs, kind of just chilling. So I decided to take it over to allow her to do the things she needed to do. So she is still around. She's coming back. We all are actually you are actually our last interview of the year, Lex. We are taking a break in January. We're taking a break in January, everyone, because Periscope is actually being discontinued. I don't even know the word for it. So they're actually going away in March. We're going to still be doing lives, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, most probably. We have to download all our content. We're trying to figure out getting all our interviews to post them all on YouTube. So that's going to take us about a month to do all of that. So we are taking a break in January. If we can start sooner, we will. But taking a break in January to make all these shifts that are happening with the technology, with everything. So please be patient with us. We will be coming back. Thank you, Mistress Lux, for being our last interview of this very, very chaotic year, 2020. But we ended it in a beautiful light. So thank you all for joining us. Be patient with us as we make the transition, as things are transitioning. And again, thank you for the support. And if you would like to support us, please sign up for our Patreon. We do really great little membership awards for those who, support us on our Patreon. So have a great evening, everyone. Lux, thank you again for joining us, and happy, new year. And thank God this year is ending. So hopefully for a better year next year. So bye, everyone.